Hey guys, welcome to Two Guys and a Mouse, the show that gives you all the Disney news, tips, and tricks to get you the most out of your Disney vacation. I'm Lance, and we're here with Les, and today we're going to talk a little bit about Disney traditions or, your must-dos that you do every time you go on a Disney vacation to make that Disney trip feel complete. And all of that is coming up next. Hey everyone, welcome back. So, everybody gets into a habit or a groove, and Disney vacationing is no different. So whether it's a particular ride, going to a shop, or eating a particular dish, today we're going to talk about some of the traditions or must-do things that you and your family can do to make that Disney vacation feel complete. Now, before we get too far into the video, if you're new to the channel, I'd like to say welcome. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing and turning notifications on so that you know whenever we release new content. Also, if you like the video, please like and share it with your friends. It'll really help out the channel. So I'm going to turn it over to Les. He's going to tell us some of his family's traditions that they do whenever they visit the Disney parks.
Hey everybody. So the first thing that came to my mind when Lance and I were discussing this episode idea was Disney Springs. It seems to be lately, and it wasn't always this way, but for the past as many trips as I can remember, we seem to be going right to Disney Springs when we get in the greater Orlando area. Now, typically this is because recently we've been driving a lot rather than flying into town, and it makes it much easier. So when you're driving in, typically we're not going to a park that day, which means we have lots of time to kill before we can check in, especially if we get there ahead of our reservation at the resort hotel. So we go right to Disney Springs. It gives me a sense of accomplishment that I finished the trip and we finally made it to Orlando. I can get into Disney Springs and I can relax, and just the whole atmosphere just really puts me and the family at ease. It gets me in the mood because I'm there and I have the whole rest of the vacation to look for it after that day. So we typically come in, we park in the parking lot, and I typically go right to the orange parking lot, and then we come down the escalator, and then you basically have the whole, at least that section of Disney Springs right in front of you, and then right there is the Coca-Cola store, which is typically the first place that we go into, and then we browse all the Coke products that I can't buy, and then we typically head up to the top floor and have some refreshments up there on the roof of the Coca-Cola store. So again, it's not something that my family has always done, but on as many trips recently that we've done, that seems to be a tradition now and the very first thing that we do. So the next one, I had a hard time trying to come up with a third one, which I'm going to talk about here. And after just discussing this with my wife, we kind of came up with it together, and that was, we have our restaurants that we like to go to every single time. There's restaurants at each of the parks that we absolutely love and we would definitely go to every time, but after a while that seems to get a little stale and then you never really get to try anything new. So the second tradition I'm going to bring up today is to try something new. So mix in a new restaurant with the old favorites, right? So try something new, get out of your comfortable space, maybe try an ethnic food that you've never tried before, or you don't have that often. And I'll give you some examples. So in April of 2020, we went to Walt Disney World, and I tried for the first time 3 different restaurants on that trip. The Boathouse, that was the very first day when we got into Orlando. Tiffin's at Animal Kingdom, and then Beer Garden at Epcot in the World Showcase in the Germany Pavilion. So, and then the third thing that I came up with was, whether this is on purpose or not, I can't really tell you. My wife didn't even realize it until I brought it up, that typically we finish our trip at Epcot. So the last day that we're going to be in the parks, I always seem to pick Epcot. Now, why is that? It's really hard to put my finger on why. I think it's just because I know that it's the last day that we're going to be in the parks, and I just absolutely love Epcot. I love walking around the World Showcase. There's just so many options for food and for drinks and just people watch. I really love the World Showcase at Epcot. So I think I've been unconsciously making Epcot the last park day for us, just as kind of like a last hurrah, I guess is the best way that I could put it, as our trip is going to come to an end. So those were the three things. There was another one I thought of. I didn't really want to bring it up. Starbucks. It's not really a tradition, but for some reason, every day that we're in the parks, like as soon as we come through the gates and get into the park, the first place that we seem to go to in every park every day of every trip is right to Starbucks. So
I don't think that's
a
tradition. I think that's more of an addiction.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. It's an addiction and not a tradition. I need my caffeine, and we all like Starbucks in my family, but it's very expensive addiction. So those are mine. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Lance. So Lance, what are yours?
So yeah, ever since 2017, we've had this tradition that we started to get a Choco Mickey, or what everybody else knows as a Mickey Premium Ice Cream Bar. And that all started with my oldest little sister went with us one trip, and we all vacation as a family, and she wanted to try a Choco Mickey, and I had never eaten one before 2017, as surprising as that sounds, and we got one, and so we were addicted. Ever since then, we've always made it a point to get a Mickey Premium Ice Cream Bar when we visit Walt Disney World. We even actually buy them at Target from time to time as a special treat, over the summer and stuff like that. So the other tradition that we typically do, or I typically do when I go to Walt Disney World, is I will go out of my way to try something new, like local breweries, right? So I'm from Pennsylvania, so I typically don't get a lot of Florida beers around here. So whenever I go to Walt Disney World, I will definitely go out of my way, as I'm visiting the restaurants and visiting the different bars, to try something new, something local. Obviously, there are ones that I like, but every year I make it a point to try something new. That's how I found out about the grapefruit Hefeweizen from Schaffenhofer. We discovered Animal Kingdom the one year, and then another year I discovered the Funky Buddha Floridian, and another trip we tried a beer called the Night Swim by Coppertail Brewing, which is a local brewery out of Clearwater. And then the last thing that we like to do is we have a tradition of getting new ears when we go to Magic Kingdom. So typically the first park that we'll go to is Magic Kingdom, especially if we're bringing new people with us. And we will always make it a point to get a new pair of ears when we go to Magic Kingdom. And what we'll typically do is we'll go to the Emporium if we're by ourselves, or traveling with people who have been to Disney before. But if we are with people who have never been to Disney, what we'll do is as soon as we go through the gates, we're going to go onto Main Street, and then we take a right, and then we go to the Town Square Theater. We let the new people who are with us meet Mickey Mouse. And as soon as you exit that meet and greet, there's a shop where you can get your first pair of ears. You could also get them embroidered there. But if they decide not to get the ears there, we walk right across the street to the Emporium, and we pick out a set of ears on the Main Street Emporium. So, again, these are things that we all do and we love doing, and it's just become, whether through purposely or by accident, a habit or a tradition that we as a family do to make our trip feel a little complete. So I'm going to turn it over to Les. He's going to give a couple of suggestions to the fans that you guys can incorporate into your Disney vacations and turn into a family tradition. So Les, how about you start out with the first one?
you inspired me with your tradition for hats, so I just felt like I had to put my hat on. So, so the first one that you can do with your family is pressed pennies. So, what are these if you don't know what a pressed penny is? So, basically, I think what do you put in, 2 quarters and a penny, or
yeah,
with
it's
inflation,
like 50
maybe
cents
it's
in a
going up
penny.
to $1 now.
It might be. I don't know what it is.
I think there are machines that actually cost $1 and a penny, or
Yeah.
you put in $1 and they provide the penny, something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's machines. They are practically everywhere.
Oh my gosh, yes.
They are in all of the parks.
Yep.
They are in all of the resorts.
Mm-hmm.
They are even at Disney Springs. So they are all over Walt Disney World property. There are, I don't even know how many they are.
There's a lot.
I don't even know if there's like a list.
Yeah.
I'm sure somewhere somebody has a list of all the different penny press machines out there, but there are a plethora.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, if you pick a machine where you have to put in your coins, you typically put in 2 quarters. That's the price that you pay to press the penny, and then the penny is what actually gets pressed. So you typically pick a design. Most of these machines will give you 3, 4, 5 options. You choose the design you want, you put in the money. Some of them are you just basically press a button and you tell it what you want and it'll press it. Some of them are actually hand cranks, so it's a big acrylic box. You can actually see the insides, and it has big metal gears and a big heavy crank, and you actually press the penny yourself. And when it's done, it spits it out in a little coin slot, and then you pick it up. And if you're like my daughter, you have many of these plastic books that you put your pressed pennies in for safekeeping and for display purposes. And then the same as we discussed on the pin trading episode, are you looking for something in particular? Do you want just the park ones? Do you want character ones? Mm-hmm. Do you want something related to a theme, like the 50th anniversary or something else? So there are just so many to pick from, and they're everywhere. But you can do that with your family and have a great time. So that's one of our ideas today.
Yeah, and to that note, another idea or another tradition that you can incorporate into your family trip is a hidden Mickey hunt. And again, like the press penny machines, hidden Mickeys are everywhere. They're in the parks, they're in the resorts, they're in the different lines, they're on the rides. And, what you can do as a family is, decide, hey, we're going to do a hidden Mickey hunt in this park on this day. And, you can take pictures, you can do video. Everybody's got a camera in their pocket nowadays with the smartphones. So, yeah, a hidden Mickey hunt is definitely a good family tradition that you can start on your Walt Disney World trip.
That could have actually been a tradition for me, because it is something that I love to do.
Oh yeah,
when we're down there, and my son doesn't necessarily like to look for hidden Mickeys, but my daughter, her and I really get into it. So quite a few years ago, I bought a book, but as the parks change and as rides change or new rides come into play, then the books kind of get dated. But there's different apps that are free. The paid ones are probably better. They're probably updated more often, but there's definitely ways to get help to track those. So definitely a good time. I love doing that.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. And the other thing that you could turn into a family tradition is because these are also all over the park and all over property, is start a popcorn bucket collection, right? I personally don't have that many popcorn buckets, but how often do they release those last? They're pretty often, right? They do every season, right?
Yeah, they come out pretty often, and they're always very popular. Like the last one was the Figment popcorn bucket, and people were practically spending their entire day waiting in lines. Like they weren't going on rides, they weren't going to attractions. They simply walked in the park, they got in a line, and they waited ridiculous amounts of time to get the Figment popcorn bucket. So yeah, people really go crazy over these things. And the ones that I just literally saw today on Instagram, Disneyland is bringing out ones that are almost like bedazzled, like they look like they're covered in gems or something like that.
I saw that online today. That's crazy.
I think they have. I may be mistaken because I didn't really read anything on them. I was just looking at pictures, but they look like they're some of the characters from the Electric Light Parade, which is supposed to be back at Disneyland if it's not back already. Gotcha. So,
yeah,
if that's your sort of thing, go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Personally, I don't have any of the popcorn buckets.
Right, but
it's just something else for me to get yelled at and clog the cupboard.
Well, I mean, so most of the time I fly, and I typically don't have a lot of room to pack with me. I mean, it's different for you, right? Because you drive, but I typically fly. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to do at the Disney parks that we could go for hours talking about different things that you can do as a tradition, but. What we'd like to know from you guys is, are there any traditions that you and your family do that we, kind of didn't mention? We'd love to hear from you. Put them in the comments below, guys. That's about the time we have for today. Les, before we wrap it up, do you have any last minute comments or anything like that?
Yeah, if you don't have a tradition, try and come up with one. We've given you some examples here today on this episode. But there's just so many things to do, and do whatever makes your family happy is probably the best advice I can give you. After we post this, about a week or so after this video comes out and hits our channel, I will be headed to Walt Disney World for a week. So if you're watching this video and you made it all the way to the end, yay, thank you, and we really appreciate your fandom here. But if there's something that you'd really like pictures of, you'd like me to review, you'd like some videos of, I would be more than happy to do any of those things. Take pictures of food, clothing, the parks, the rides, attractions, fireworks. I will be there for a week, so put me to work. That's about it.
All right, guys. Well, hey, we appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us today. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.
See you, everybody.